Okay, back with another patching tip on the Behringer 2600. This is a tip for how to use the filter as an LFO. Most people know you can use the filter as an oscillator, but it actually makes a pretty decent LFO as well. So I'm just going to walk you through the different things you can do with it and then show an example patch where it might be useful if all you have is a 2600 to work with. So let's say we're just listening to a sine wave from oscillator 2. If we take the output of the filter while it's self-oscillating, it will just work as an LFO. You have to bring the cutoff down. So you might say that doesn't sound like an LFO. Well, we can lower the cutoff even more by using a negative DC source. So from the second output of the voltage processor into the filter CV mod. So now your cutoff controls the speed of the LFO. And it's a bit of a funky LFO. This filter has two modes. If you switch the mode switch, you get some strange things going on. If you put the switch halfway, it stops the modulation, and then when you click it, it sort of like ramps up. Kind of funny. So if you slow down the LFO, you can get it going pretty slow. But if you max out the -10 and max out the filter mod, it'll actually stop the LFO entirely. So we can wait here, it's not going to ramp. If we bring the cutoff up, it'll work again, but it's like the act of pushing it down with the full DC source that cuts off the LFO. So you only want to go so far with the DC source. You might say, this isn't slow enough, and the -10 is not getting it slow enough. Well, you can get it a little bit slower by sending the filter back to itself, to the CV input. You can hear it still kind of moving around. So if you run the output of the filter through the lag, you can shape the LFO a little bit. So we'll speed it up. Try some feedback. You can get these little different types of shapes. So we'll unpatch this. And you might just say like, oh, this is cool, but I don't really need to use this. There's lots of LFOs, but you do run into situations where you don't need the filter, but could use an extra LFO. So we'll start with the ring mod and we'll put VCO1 to low and 2 to audio rate. And what happens is the one will gate the other. This works in audio mode. In DC, it doesn't really work the same. So we'll send the sample and hold to the low frequency oscillator. To vary the speed of the triggering. And now we want to change the speed or the pitch of the other oscillators, so we'll use the sample and hold for that as well. So this is good. We don't really need the filter. What we do need is some oscillator mod from VCO3. So there goes another potential LFO. So now let's say we want to use the actual LFO to slowly change VCO2 and 3. So now we're using the LFO, the internal clock for the sample and hold, and we're using all 3 oscillators. So we could feed the preamp back into itself and get an LFO that way, but it's difficult to voltage control it. So let's try using the filter. So we'll take the output of the filter, and we'll send it to VCO2. So now we'll slow down the filter LFO with a DC source. And now we can send the sample and hold to the filter to change the speed of our LFO that we've made. It might be nice to have VCO3 or VCO2 modded by VCO1 through the normal connection. So if we use a slightly longer cable, we can mod the VCO2 through its keyboard CV normal input. This is a pretty strong input, so you might want to attenuate the filter a little bit with the other voltage processor. So that's pretty much it, just another way to get more modulation out of one of these things. It's so good for the price, can't recommend it enough. Thanks for watching.